Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2008 James Bond sequel, Quantum of Solace, a film that is directed by Mark Forster and stars once again Daniel Craig. We have Judi Dench returning as M, we have Olga Kurylenko, Mathieu Amalric, Gemma Arterton, Jeffrey Wright and David Harbour. Now, this film is the direct sequel to Casino Royale that was released 2 years previously and was the first outing for Daniel Craig as James Bond. Now, Casino Royale was lauded by everybody, which was great to see, especially when you consider that the press and the media and others were very much against Daniel Craig's casting as James Bond, even though they would probably deny that now, some of them. And Casino Royale was rightfully hailed as a fantastic James Bond film, and historically it has gone down as arguably one of the greatest of all time Bond films. So they had their hands full following that up with Quantum of Solace. Now, I think it's fair to say that many people dismiss Quantum of Solace as a substandard or a below average James Bond film. And I was one of those. I mean, I'd only ever seen it once, and I don't remember being impressed with it. I didn't see it at the cinema. In fact, I've not seen any of the Daniel Craig ones at the cinema, apart from the most recent one, No Time to Die. So I understand that comparison, and I understand why a lot of people were underwhelmed, but look what it had to follow up on. But I've just watched it last night again with my wife Lisa, who hadn't seen it, and is enjoying watching the Daniel Craig films as she's not seen any of them before. And I have to say, I enjoyed this far more than I expected. Really, so much more than I expected. It's actually not a bad film, and not a bad Bond film as well. Now, interestingly, it is, like I said, a direct sequel to Casino Royale. It follows on where the first film left us, in a sense of it just taken down Mr. White. So we see him at the beginning of this film with Mr. White in the boot of his car, trying to escape a load of bad guys, getting Mr. White to M. And then it basically takes off from there. Bond is still hurting from Vesper's death from the first one, even though he won't admit it. So he's trying to basically figure out who this secret organisation is, but also there is a new bad guy in town, Dominic Green, who's like an environmental terrorist, I suppose. He's got a plan in place to steal all the water from Bolivia and also help this dictator get power back. And Bond essentially links him to this organisation, and it all kind of ties together, and he's going to try and bring them down. However, it also brings into question with M his loyalty to MI6, because she thinks he's been compromised emotionally. So she's got all that going on as well. Right, Quantum of Solace then. I have to say, this is quite a tidy Bond. I mean, when you actually consider as well, the first one was more grounded and gritty, and while it did have action sequences and some jaw-dropping action sequences, it was nowhere near on the same level as this one. I mean, the action in this one is off the scale. It's breathtaking action when we get it, and they do slow it down sometimes. My wife did actually comment fairly early on in the film. She says, my only comment or criticism at the minute is, that there's not much story. It just seems to be all action, and then they do start sewing some of the story elements into the film as it goes on. I thought Daniel Craig again gives a very, very good nuanced Bond performance here. A man who is hurt and still hurting after what happened to him in the first film. I thought Judi Dench was fantastic as M, a larger role for her in this film. And she, really good, very protective of Bond, but also at the same time not taking any crap as well, which I really liked. I thought there was a great scene in the film, I think, where she basically disarms Bond and says, right, we're bringing you in because you're not listening to us. And then he escapes very easily and just kind of wanders up to her and says, I'm gonna sort this out. I'm going to bring down blah 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 whatever. And the look on M's face was fantastic, as if to say, "Oh, I've underestimated you, haven't I? I forgot you this good." Really, really good scene. Some nicely put together action scenes. I mean, this film has had a lot of criticism because of its use of shaky cam. Because it was the big thing at the time, shaky cam, from the Bond franchise and things like that, and people thought it was just copying that. The thing is, you see, I think with shaky cam, when it's done poorly, it's basically they use shaky cam to cover up poor fight sequences or poor editing. When it's done properly, as it is in this film and the Bond films, it emphasises the action scenes. It makes them look rawer, grittier, more brutal, and it's not hiding poor fight choreography or poor editing. It's emphasising the brutality of the moment, and that's why I think it really works in this film. Very, very good. I think my only real major criticism here, I think, is the ending is a bit anticlimactic when he takes down Dominic Green. It does feel a little bit anticlimactic to me. I thought Olga Kurylenko was a great addition as a Bond girl, but we've kind of seen that kind of Bond girl before. Gemma Arterton as Strawberry Fields wasn't in it enough. I quite liked her character, and I think it's fair to say that Dominic Green's villain here, whereas a lot of people say, "Oh, he's a poor villain," blah blah blah. He's not a poor villain. The environmental terrorist side of him was very relevant, still is very relevant, and it does work. And it highlights as well Bond's lost his focus in this film, because he doesn't realise until very late on in the film what the actual plan of Dominic Green is. He's basically just using Dominic Green to try and get further into this secret organisation for his own means, to figure out what happened to Vesta and take his revenge. So he kind of it holds the mirror up to Bond, this villain, in the sense of, he has to question himself almost, because he loses focus a little bit in this film. But also as well, I do think it's a good villain, but I do agree that maybe it wasn't brilliantly cast, the Dominic Green character. I think it could have been better cast. He doesn't feel very sinister. He just feels like a greasy businessman. You never really feel he's sinister and will kill you at the blink of an eye, even though there are moments in the film where he does do that sort of thing, or gets his henchmen to do it. So I must admit, upon a second viewing and looking at this from a critical standpoint, I don't think this film is as bad as people made out. It's a good entry into the Bond franchise. Does it change its position in regards to my ranking of Daniel Craig's Bond films? Well, I'm not going to answer that until I've watched all the Daniel Craig Bond films again. Of course, it's not as good as Casino Royale. I suspect it's not as good as Skyfall. The question really is it as good or better than Spectre? We'll see that when I revisit Spectre in a week or two, whenever I get around to watching that one. So ultimately, I'm actually going to be reasonably generous with this one and give it an 8 out of 10. I can't give you any massive major faults here, other than it's not as good as Casino Royale, but that's no surprise, really. It's not as good as Casino Royale, and it was never going to be. So yeah, but I do think if like me and like many others, you kind of dismiss Quantum of Solace as a poor Bond film, give it another go. It's actually pretty good, pretty watchable, full of action, some more great Bond moments, and I'm looking forward to checking out Skyfall next. So stay tuned for that review in the coming days, weeks, whenever I get a chance to watching it. So thanks once again, everybody, for your support, and I'll be back on the channel with plenty more content very, very soon.